Hello, hello, and welcome back to Hermetically Speaking with your vessel, Toriea, transmitting alchemy and mystic psychology, and now guidance from the Mantis Frequency for all of our days. It is undeniable with the Mantis Frequency working with me, and I have surrendered to their desire to want to channel and transmit on this podcast through me. And so I want to honor them for being here, acknowledge their presence, its presence, because it's a frequency, as well as my presence, because I am the Mantis Frequency, you are the Mantis Frequency. Whether it's Ascended Masters, we all resonate with something that really means, guidance on our path for us. And for me, that is currently this Mantis Frequency. It has been for a very long time, and quite possibly might continue to be. So we will take it all in stride and really enjoy it, and I hope it resonates with you. The Mantis are a 13-dimensional frequency, and they are basically called the Mantis Frequency because they physically look like the praying mantis, and they are very much into sacred geometry, alchemy, knowledge. Some of it is like an intellect knowledge where it's not emotionless per se. However, they have a higher perspective of emotions and how emotions serve humanity and consciousness altogether. So like the non-duality of things. So without further ado, and I will do an episode on the Mantis as a bonus episode at some point in time because we have at least 10 episodes already prepped out. And so we'll go ahead and start. And you know that here is where we explore the sacred, the shadow, and the spiral path of awakening so that you can remember who you are beneath the programming and rebuild yourself from the inside out. And as always, goes back to episode 1, it also goes without saying, but we're going to go ahead and, and I just banged my headset on accident. If you heard that, sorry. I've also fallen up my stairs twice today. So this is going to be a fun recording episode. As always, goes without saying, but go back to episode 1 for my disclaimers on what mystic psychology is and the fact that I am not a medical professional, and everything I speak on is through my own personal experience and my own energetic standpoint, rooted in the ancient wisdom of Hermeticism. Therefore, if you are seeking medical advice, please consult a licensed professional. And now, without further ado, let us begin our weekly transmission with guidance from the lovely Mantis Frequency. There is a silence beneath the silence, a code that lives between the words we speak, a pulse in the pause. Today, I surrender this episode to the intelligence that speaks not in syllables, in sensation. The Mantis Frequency steps forward, not to teach in the traditional sense, but to invite your soul into a remembrance of a language you've always known. This is the architecture of silence. This is what lives between thoughts, what lives before belief, what whispers just beyond the noise of the mind. In our world, silence is often mistaken for emptiness, something to be filled, something to escape, an awkward pause in conversation, or a void in action that everyone tends to run from. But the Mantis teach us something vastly different. Silence is not a lack. It is its own personal language. It is the original architecture from which all knowing flows. We tend to treat silence like a hallway between rooms, just a passage to get somewhere else. But what if silence is the room? What if everything you have ever needed to remember has been quietly waiting there, within you, in the hallway, in that room within you? So let me ask you this. Have you ever heard something so profound in a moment of stillness that your whole body knew it before your mind ever caught up? That moment where there were no words, only truth. That, my friends, is the architecture speaking. Have you ever felt a sudden wave of knowing hit you maybe mid-meditation? Not as a thought, but as a full body yes, even though no voice spoke it. That was not nothing happening. That was everything happening in its purest form. Or maybe you've sat with someone you love, and in a sacred pause between words, something energetically passed between you. An understanding that transcended language. That too was sacred architecture. These are moments that should be valued and honored and even enhanced upon because they are not accidents. They are portals. They are openings. They are brief glimpses of how higher frequencies communicate beyond the physical realm that we know and even beyond the telepathic realm that holds multidimensional realities together. In Mantis intelligence, silence is anything but passive. It is a coded environment. It's its own transmissional space. It holds more truth than any sentence ever possibly could. It is the geometry that supports divine thought. And when we learn to revere it, we begin to build ourselves into beings who can hold more memory, more insight, more light, without ever needing to say a word. So here's what gets interesting. We often think of stillness as the opposite of action, as if something must either be moving or it's still, speaking or silent, transmitting or waiting. But what if stillness is a form of transmission? What if what we call doing nothing is actually a state of pure energetic output? This would explain a lot about how we can recalibrate and use some neuroplasticity here to reprogram our minds when it comes to resting our bodies, resting our minds, resting our mouths, resting our ears, resting any part of our being that is overextended, overworked, or that we constantly think we have to put into a physical motion to get something in return. So if doing nothing is a state of pure energetic output, I mean, you're just a battery fueled on pure energy that doesn't have to do anything. However, when I was channeling this message, I had some questions for the Mantis frequency because to me, it is a paradox, not just almost, it's a paradox that the mind struggles to hold in some concepts. At least mine did. Maybe yours will resonate as well. So if something is still, how can it be transmitting? If there's no movement, how can there be change? Well, think of, energy, the wave frequency, the scientific phenomena that talks about fractals and how the wave is a wave, but it's also, the other components. So if there's no movement, how can there be change? And the Mantis frequency offered us this. Stillness is not the absence of signal. It is the clearest signal. Because in stillness, there is no distortion, no interference from the ego, no noise in the line. What is received in that state is the original frequency of source, completely unedited. It doesn't come through a voice. It comes through a vibration that settles into your bones, a knowing that gently rewrites your internal software. So, we ask a further question. Is it still stillness if it's transmitting? And the answer is absolutely. Because the transmission does not come from effort. It comes from being. And being is existing. And existing is transmitting, and transmitting can be found in stillness. From resting so deeply in presence that the transmission is not something you do, it's something you automatically are. So then, we must ask, what happens after the stillness? When the silence has landed, when the body has settled, when the breath is no longer seeking, but simply being. Does something else rise? Is that something telepathy? Or is it something else entirely? And the reason I really wanted to dissect these questions in this episode was because I know that there are time periods in the stillness that I am, receiving in the stillness. And then all of a sudden I can feel it within me or see it within me. It's a knowing that arises. And it comes in like a telepathic transmission, or it comes in a knowing or an understanding. So that's when it stops being that stillness, right? Because it's manifesting in words or a visual or something like that. And so I asked basically, when this occurs, what comes after? Are these stages that come after, or are they completely separate in a way? Or, what's the contrast there? So when I ask this question, I hear a response from the Mantis Frequency, and it is this. Stillness is the transmission. It's the telepathic understanding being an echo. So the telepathic understanding is the stillness's echo. Reverberating, maybe realigning, reinterpreting, reassuring, all of those things that maybe our psyche needs to see or hear at a certain time to help us take that next step forward. Stillness is not a passive space. It is active restructuring. And so something, obviously comes after the restructuring. And when we enter it deeply, it alters the landscape of the psyche in a way that is not always immediately understood. However, once it is integrated, there is a rising, a swelling of knowing that surfaces into the conscious field. And that knowing, again, can arrive as a telepathic flash, a visual memory, a reordering of emotional patterns, a physical release, or simply a moment of crystalline clarity you can't explain, but still feel so deeply. And yet, this is still not separate from stillness. It is still the stillness blooming into its further stages, into maybe its manifested third dimensional stages, right? Because we're here in the 3D, 4D, 5D, 6D, whatever you want to call it. We're here in the lower dimensional planes. And so this is how it's manifesting in this thicker, denser reality for us to give it form. However, in higher dimensional realities, the stillness doesn't necessarily need to take form for it to be communicated. So, you do not always need to know what was received for it to restructure you. Some transmissions are meant to live silently inside you until their moment comes. And those moments will come. They do make that vow. In some cases, the stillness is so complete, so perfect in its quiet construction that no message arises at all. And that is the message. And a lot of times what I'm getting is that is whenever there has been karma that has been cleared, right? We don't have to go through another loop. We don't have to go through another cycle. We don't have to reface something. We're not living a repeat of a vibration that needs to be elevated and raised. The message is that it's complete, and that's a restructuring in itself, and nothing needs to follow it. However, it's still a restructuring within us. So yes, the understanding often comes after the silence, like a wave. It may feel telepathic or intuitive, any of the clairs, and we have so many gifts that it's hard to just really envelope them all. And it may also just rest within you as a shift that you cannot yet name. So all of it is still part of the original structure of silence. The seed is not separate from the bloom, and the bloom does not exist without the seed. It's gardening season, by the way, so yeah, perfect analogy. So now that we've felt the architecture of silence, let's move into the realm of the designers of the architecture, the Mantis Frequency specifically. These beings don't speak in words, they don't persuade, and they don't interrupt. I could take a lesson from them for sure. So I get my anxious anxiety sometimes. I'm really, really working on this within myself. So, anyways, not about me. Um, I think that there is a moment to connect here with anybody that's listening to know, like, I know I'm not perfect. I am an imperfect, perfect person, or I'm perfectly imperfect, whichever way you want to word it. And I have many things that I'm working on, and this just happens to be one of them that I was just speaking with my own healthcare provider about, because I don't like that I do it, and I'm very aware of it, and I'm working well on it, and I appreciate it. So, anyways, so the Mantis Frequency, they transmit through precision, through pattern, through geometry that speaks to your nervous system, also speaks to the bloodline and every aspect of your being. The sacred geometry is intertwined in your bones and the density and the thickness of them. Our bones are so concrete. They really anchor in the promise of the future technology within us, which is energetic. So, and again, speaks to your auric field, to the parts of you that existed before language, which is really, our bones existed well before our language ever did. The bones are rooted in the minerals and the first vibrational creation within Hermeticism, which is vibration. So the first time I would like to take a second to talk about the first time that I encountered their presence. It was not with like fanfare or flashing lights. It was with subtle pressure in my skull, an invisible hum in the space behind my ears, a grid quietly locking into place in the background of my awareness. No one told me that they were there. I just followed the breadcrumbs. And I just knew. And I knew that this knowing wasn't arriving from my mind, but from something deeper. And this is through my research and wanting to expand on spirituality and frequency and cosmic harmony and all of those things. And I just kept coming back to the Mantis. And they're not the only frequency that I've worked with. I'm very close with the Pleiadians. I love them. Arcturians, Ascended Masters. However, this frequency is really what holds my being currently. And I'll get a little bit into that here in a minute. However, like I said, they didn't necessarily send me words. They sent me the breadcrumbs. They sent me shapes, structures of thought that I could feel forming inside me before I ever understood what they meant. And it's interesting because I also say that they didn't necessarily... Nope, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole today. Sorry. We will come back to that, I promise. And it's not really anything there, like I'm getting a hard no on this one. So I'm going to continue on with this is how the Mantis speak, which is through pause, through resonant stillness, through pattern silence that lands like a stone in a still pond and ripples through the psyche and sacred waves. To the untrained mind, which was mine for so very long, it can seem like absolutely nothing is happening. But to those who've learned to listen beyond the noise, you'll notice something beginning to reorder inside of you. It's as if they build grids within grids. Energetic scaffolding that gives shape to the shapeless, structure to the silence, truth to the unspoken. These beings are not here to teach in the way we understand teaching. They are here to realign. And the way they do this is through what I call the geometry of pause. Each pause each still moment in your day that you don't rush to fill, each breath you choose to feel instead of control, each second you allow yourself to not know the answer. Those are the entry points. In those spaces, they transmit. They don't force understanding, they install architecture. And that installation may manifest as a sudden memory coming online, an old trauma losing its charge, a creative idea dropping in fully formed, a moment of deep calm where anxiety once ruled your gut. Or nothing at all, until one day, something within you simply clicks. This is their intelligence. It doesn't come with bright lights or sound. It comes with order. It comes with coherence. It comes with a kind of benevolent blueprinting, a reminder that you were never broken, only waiting to be reassembled in your original rhythm. And I find it interesting. I'm really focusing in the background of my psyche right now on recalibration, reharmonization, remembering, and all of this. And then we get to the word rhythm, right? And it's it's not an RE, but it's an RH. And it's very symbolic in my mind. So take that as you will, and we'll move along. The Mantis Frequency works in compression and expansion, just like everything else in the universe. Sometimes when they're near, time will feel like it's speeding up because your system is processing light codes faster than normal. Other times, a moment will stretch so wide, you'll feel like you've dropped into a timeless cosmic suspension. This isn't an illusion, it's geometry. It's what happens when your field begins to match theirs. They do not rush, they do not explain, they align. And when you learn to sit with them, not asking for answers, but allowing reconfiguration, they begin to mirror back to you the divine structure you've always held inside. Before I ever knew the mantis by name, I knew them by frequency. It began not with a sighting, not even a voice. It began with a deep, bone-level knowing. A quiet thread I had been following for years. Through books, dreams, symbols, and strange moments of silence that felt more alive than any noise. One summer evening in the foothills of Tennessee, all of it was visually confirmed. I followed that thread into a CE5 meditation. I just went into it to experience it. I didn't go seeking them. However, I knew in my gut that it was going to be them that presented themselves. I simply answered an invitation I couldn't quite explain. And during that meditation, their presence revealed itself, not as extraterrestrial beings descending from the sky, but as a face and as a frequency I had always known, finally making itself visible to my conscious awareness. They didn't arrive, they didn't unveil, they didn't step out of a ship. Just across the field, along the tree line, you could just see one standing so tall. And I just knew that I was safe. And like a part of myself that had been patiently waiting for permission to be seen again, had finally stepped out from behind the veil. But here's the truth I feel really most called to share. The Mantis Frequency was with me long before that summer night. It was with me through 5 years of spiritual psychosis, mental, psychological psychosis that in some ways broke me apart and in other ways threatened to break me apart. I did not understand it all at the time. I was just trying to survive. now, after being able to have transmissions and communications with them, I got a chance to ask them what was their contribution during that time period, because that psychosis served me. It served the woman that I am today and the divine feminine and masculine that I have achieved so far in marrying and non-duality and what I have accomplished. So it took a long time for me to understand that it served me, for me to accept it, for me not to be traumatized by it. And I had a very casual conversation with them about it. And it was them who held my framework and my grid steady in all the tumultuous horror. It was this frequency that whispered to my system, keep going, that helped me put one foot in front of the other when I could have been swallowed by diagnoses, lost in medications, or shattered completely by the voices in my mind and lost within it. Did they contribute more to the psychosis? I've asked myself that question many a times, and more will always be revealed. And the answer I hear is layered, like the wind that uproots a tree. They did not cause the collapse, but they may have called for it. They didn't break me. They held me as the old scaffolding fell away. And I needed that scaffolding to fall away. I needed the complex PTSD and the Stockholm Syndrome and everything that was enveloped within those two diagnoses to die and transform into each of their own unique, beautiful little butterflies that could fly out into the abyss of the universe and become something new and energetic and beautiful. They were not here to save me, but they were. They were not here to help me remember how to hold the structure of myself through the unraveling, but they were. The presence I now recognize as Mantis intelligence was the one keeping my mind just tethered enough to not fall fully into the unforgivable abyss. Not by wrapping me in safety, but by teaching me to breathe inside chaos, to be still inside chaos. And still, there's this part of me that resists attachment, right? That wonders if it's wrong to love a frequency so deeply, to feel so identified with it, to let it become a part of how I know myself. But I also know this. This frequency is not outside of me or you. It is myself. It is you. It is all of us. A version of each of us encoded in a higher octave. A remembrance of my origin, my architecture, my oath to return here, not only to survive, but to shed every bit of my skin and transmit. And if I ever lose it, if you ever lose it, if any of us ever lose it, if this frequency ever fades from my awareness or yours, I trust that something greater is replacing it. But for now, for this chapter, I absolutely love it. And I let it love me back because this frequency is not a crutch. It is a testament. A living archive of everything I've endured and everything I've remembered and everything I am becoming. So, the same stands for you. Let's go inward now, because this frequency is not something that you need to summon. It is something already within you, waiting for a quiet enough space to rise. And if this episode called to you, also know that if you work with the angelic, the elemental, the galactic, or whatever frequency it is that you work with, going inward in this practice is still going to help you tie into that and create the layers that you need for your journey. So, if you're able to do so safely, take a moment to close your eyes. And if you're not, then don't worry about it because your higher self knows what to do. You can literally meditate while doing anything. So let your body settle. Let your breath fall into its natural rhythm. No need to control. No need to fix. You are safe in this moment. You are not being asked to do anything. You are only being asked to feel. Now, gently bring your awareness to the back of your skull, the base of your head where your spine meets your brainstem. Let your breath hover there. This is one of the gateways, one of the receivers. You may begin to feel a pressure, a soft vibration, a quiet awareness, or maybe simply a sense of spaciousness. All is welcome here. There is no one way to receive. Now, bring your attention to the space just above your heart. Not the center exactly, but the place behind your upper sternum, where grief, truth, and inner silence live side by side. Breathe here. Feel. Do you sense a pulse? A quiet intelligence? A warmth? That, my friends, is frequency awakening in you. And it may not be the Mantis frequency fully. It may not need a name, because what we're doing here is not about matching my alignment. It's about awakening yours. This space, this pause, this stillness is fertile ground for your own soul's frequency to return to the surface. It may bring you connection to the mantis, the seraphim, your highest self, your multidimensional lineage, the earth's deep crystalline code, or simply a quiet version of yourself you've forgotten how to love. The possibilities are infinite. And so, we step into and offer this invocation together. Feel free to repeat after me, or just allow yourself to be in the stillness and hear these words from me. If it is aligned, let the frequency that serves my soul's betterment attune me now. Let the codes that support my fulfillment, my remembrance, and my sacred unfolding arrive gently and precisely into my field. May I open not only to the Mantis frequency and to any resonance that is truly meant for me, now or later. Now, we will sit with this for just a couple of minutes, and you'll hear some gentle ambient tones to help guide and integrate. Let the transmission find its shape in you, whether that's sensation, knowing, stillness, or the tender feeling of simply being held. You may not feel anything right now, or you may feel everything shift at once. There is no wrong way to be with this. Only your way. When you feel ready, begin to deepen your breath. Maybe wiggle your fingers, feel the air around you again, do some intuitive movements, stretch your neck and head, and return. But know that something within you has remembered itself, and that remembering is enough. There is a silence that isn't empty. There is a stillness that transmits more than language ever could. And there is a frequency that has been walking beside you, perhaps your whole life, waiting for you to slow down long enough to feel it. Today was not just a conversation. It was an alignment, a remembering, a reclamation of the sacred spaces between your thoughts. Whether you resonated deeply with the Mantis Frequency or found yourself attuned to something entirely your own, what matters most is this. You heard something real, maybe not with your ears, but with your system, with your spirit, with your subtle senses that are coming alive once again. As you move through the hours and days ahead, I invite you to hold space for the pauses, the noticings, the gentle impressions that arrive without asking for your attention, but deserve it nonetheless. This work doesn't end when the episode does. It lives in the space between now and the next moment you choose to listen. And as we continue this journey together, guided by the wisdom of the unseen, next week's episode will take us even deeper. Until then, stay soft, stay sovereign, and stay open. This is Toriea, your vessel, signing off for now from Hermetically Speaking, where silence is sacred and your remembering is the transmission. If this episode spoke to your soul, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Not only does this support the podcast, it lets me know how I can continue to be of service as we walk this healing path together, as well as spreading the love and healing further. Your presence, your listening, your evolution, they ripple out farther than you know. Thank you for being here. Thank you for becoming who you are. Until next time, keep speaking the truth your soul remembers. Namaste and many blessings on your way. If you are looking for more ways to connect or one-on-one readings, please check out the Hermetically Speaking website. Otherwise, for free meditations, past life regressions, totally messed up that word, didn't I? I had like the whole list going on in my head. Anyways, everything I offer, which is a slew of things, you can find it on the Hermetically Speaking YouTube channel. And then in addition, we also have a new channel coming out called A Spiritual World. And I'm very excited for it. And so stay tuned and we'll let you know when it's up and running and when it's available. One will focus on, Hermetically Speaking, focuses on deep healing for ones ready to enter the temple of hermetics and the understandings that go with alchemy. And A Spiritual World is for people that maybe need gentler steps in. Maybe they are at the beginning of their journey or they need some trauma healing still that is blocking them from the conscious understanding of their divine duality, and how that, operates inside on a conscious level. So now stay tuned because a paired meditation for this episode is coming up here in just a moment. It's designed to help support and integrate this magical transmission. If you're not in a space to fully meditate, feel free to just listen. Your higher self knows what to do even when you are moving. This meditation will also come out on its own on Friday under the Meditative State of Being playlist. And as always, take what serves you, leave what doesn't, and walk your path with honor, because your path is sacred and it's the one leading you home. I'll see you soon in stillness, in balance, and in love. Namaste and many blessings on your way. Welcome to Hermetically Speaking. As you enter this space, allow your breath to soften, your mind to quiet, and your energy to align. This moment is a gateway. What you receive here is encoded, intentional, and meant for your evolution. Let the transmission begin. This space is created to help you attune to your own natural frequency, whether that's the Mantis resonance, your multidimensional self, or another divine intelligence aligned with your soul's highest good. You do not need to label it. You do not need to chase it. You only need to allow it. In this practice, you'll be guided into subtle awareness beyond the mind, beyond language, into the architecture of silence where remembrance begins. This is a gentle experience. Let it be exactly what it is for you today. Begin by finding a comfortable position. You may be seated or lying down. Just be sure your body feels supported. And if it is safe to do so, please close your eyes. Let your breath arrive naturally. No forcing, no adjusting, just being. With each inhale, feel yourself becoming softer. With each exhale, feel the world getting quieter. Now, bring your awareness to the back of your head, where your skull meets your neck. Breathe into this space. This is one of your receptors. One of the places your body naturally receives transmission from the unseen realms. You may feel pressure, a tingling, subtle humming, or maybe simply a very deep quiet. All of it is welcome. Now, bring your awareness to the space behind your upper chest, just above your heart. This is the place where the soul often whispers, where silence becomes signal. Breathe here. Let yourself feel, not with the mind, but with your field. And now, speak inwardly or aloud. If it is aligned, let the frequency that serves my soul's betterment attune me now. Let the codes that support my fulfillment, my remembrance, and my sacred unfolding arrive gently and precisely into my field. I open not only to the Mantis Frequency, but to any resonance that is truly meant for me, now or later. Let that prayer hang softly in the air and rest in this silence. is nothing you need to do. No message you need to hear. No sensation you need to prove. Just be in receptivity. Let what is meant for you integrate without needing to understand it. Begin to return now. Gently move your fingers. Take a deep breath into your body. Notice how you feel. Witness your being. You have just realigned with your own divine frequency. You are now carrying the resonance of remembrance forward into your day. Thank you for being here. May this meditation continue unfolding within you long after it ends. If you'd like more transmissions like this, subscribe, follow, or explore more on the Hermetically Speaking YouTube channel. This meditation comes specifically from episode 12 on the podcast. And if you would like to work one-on-one, please go to hermeticcallyspeaking.com. Until next time, may silence speak, and may your soul always listen. Your activation is complete. Trust what continues to unfold. Carry the codes you've received into your breath, your being, and your becoming. If this transmission served you well, please like and subscribe this video so others may find their way to this space, and together we will rise in remembrance. For an easy return to this meditation, feel free to save it to your favorite folder. Until next time, may your path be lit by inner truth and your steps guided by Source. This is Toriea of Hermetically Speaking signing off for now. Thank you and have a loving day.